Okay, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests. I've got this great idea. 2 weeks ago we got this email. From who's it? What's it? 2 weeks ago we got this email. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when I say that to my coworker, the second time I say, "You remember, don't you? 2 weeks ago we got this email," he shuts off right then and goes back to watching his YouTube videos. Well, I come up with a lot of big ideas there, and in my career, I have actually been recognized for some of those. For example, in this current job, not in the current job I have, but in the former job that I had at WorldPay, I understood the overall idea of what we were supposed to do, as opposed to some of my coworkers that would just sit there and say, "Okay, let me just make the outbound phone calls," and then whenever they feel like it, they would stop. And I would try to really work and focus on getting these people installed there. So understanding the overall idea of what we were supposed to do and why. At Blue Cross Blue Shield, I was actually paid an extra bonus for coming up with an idea. And it wasn't so much that I came up with the idea, because it wasn't original, it's just that I knew who to go to in order to get the idea done. So when I went for an interview, the guy looked at me and said, "Well, how did you get this idea done? Did you move it up the chain, or did you go directly to the person and ask them to do it?" I said, "I went to the person and asked them to do it." And I thought, I don't want the job of where the manager is asking me how to get things done at a company I'm not even working for. So I'm glad I didn't get that job. The next idea was at Icon Office Solutions, where the manager, each month, we would have this dinner, we'd have lunch, and then we would go, and somebody would say, "I have a problem," and we would go, and every person had to come up with an idea. And they would get to me, and I would come up with an idea. And one of the girls looked at me and said, "How do you come up with this stuff?" Well, it turns out that one of the reasons why I can come up with some of these ideas is because I'm dyslexic. For those of you that don't know what dyslexia is, the definition is when a person can have a high IQ, but they have get this under control. They have a high IQ, but they have a lower aptitude test. So it's a 20-point aptitude test. Now, things have gotten a lot more complicated than that. So it is a lot more complicated, but that's the basics. You have an IQ test, you do an aptitude test, you have a just 20-point discrepancy. So for example, for myself, I have a very high reading comprehension, but when I go to write, I have a very difficult time for writing. So for example, on the reading tests, when they give you those nice little sentences and you read them and then they pick out a word and they'll say, "And what does this word mean?" And you go down and pick a choice. I can always pick the right answer. But if I went to say what that word is, I have absolutely no clue how to pronounce it. There's nothing in the brain that gives me a reference on how to associate the sounds with what I'm seeing on the page. I was supposed to have phonics and did when I was in the 10th grade. So, but the ability of not being able to actually go specifically with details is the very reason that I'm able to expand the mind out and grab different ideas and pull them together in order to come up with a big concept. My problem is I have to figure out how to pull out enough details to explain the big idea. So I only come up with a few ideas in order for me to actually, of all the ideas, only a few of them are picked out and I'm able to express them well enough to to get those ideas down. So there's an emerging idea about dyslexics that they're talking about the different levels of big ideas that dyslexics have. Again, you still have to work on details. So an example is when they did MRIs, they found out that the people who were dyslexics had brains that the connecting tissue was, I don't know if the word loose is right, but the connecting tissue had some distance to it. So that means that the ideas or the kinetic flow can go from one area to another, as opposed to autism that had connecting tissue that was dense. And so they zero in on very specific details. So for example, in a forest, an autism person may look at the tree bark and know all the specifics of the tree bark, but not know that they're looking at a tree. A normal person may know that they're looking at the tree. A dyslexic is going to know they're in the forest and know the overall concept. So that's some of so then the other part that's coming out is that a lot of people think that dyslexics switch words around, letters around. They don't. It's actually a mirrored image. So when there's like B and D or P and Q, and the idea is that when we're young, babies, infants, we have to mirror that in order, or adults, in order to be able to emulate what they're doing and learn how to learn. Because we don't have all those skills yet. Then as we get older and as we learn how to read, we actually lose that mirror image there. But some people never lose it. They continue on with that mirror image, and it's actually where the 3D concept comes in. So for example, someone that's in the fashion world, they're able to visualize in 3D, and then they can take that 3D image and put it on paper. Tommy Hilfiger is one. So he's dyslexic, but he's able to take that and utilize that 3D image there. But when there's studies, and this came from the Atlantic article, about when they actually started educating illiterate people, they lost the ability to do the 3D image or the mirror image. So reading actually has an impact on not being able to view or being able to look at the whole picture. That's good and bad, because you have to be able to do details and to be able to read. So it depends on what it is that you're looking for. What is it that you're doing? If you have a guard that's guarding your building, do you want them to, when someone's talking to them, to be able to zoom in on that person and not be able to see the peripherals and pay attention to that? Or do you want them not to pay attention always on you, but continue to look at what's going on around you? So we have problems focusing in on individual person when they're talking, but we don't have a problem with paying attention to the outside areas of what's going on in a whole picture. So it depends on what is it that you're doing. But we dyslexics come up with the big ideas. A lot of people, such as Cisco, the founder of Cisco, he electrocuted himself when he was a kid, but he was able to come up with the whole concept of connecting routers and come up with a Cisco system. So in engineering, a lot of engineers, dyslexics, famous people in entertainment. Henry Winkler talks a lot about being dyslexic and some of the things that he's done. and come up with a cartoon character about it too. So in the entertainment field, so it's a lot of different areas depending on what type of idea, where they're able to utilize their strengths there. So we have to look at, I am trying to figure out how to take my big ideas and what I'm good at and put it into something other than being on the telephone trying to troubleshoot. Trying to troubleshoot. Madam Tabletop.